Good afternoon and welcome to BioAlberta's 2020 Annual General Meeting. My name is Rob Stoddard, and as President and CEO, I would like to welcome you here today. On behalf of our Board of Directors and our team, I want to say thank you for being part of Alberta's life sciences and innovation ecosystem. Before I introduce Cam Linke as our keynote, I want to provide a bit of a state of Alberta in the President's report. But first, I'd like to congratulate our new board members who joined us as of this afternoon. Keith Driver from Propel Ventures, Jaspreet Grewal, Ben Consulting, Nathan Robb from McCarthy Tetro, George Samoil, a retired pharmaceutical and government executive, and Svetlana Sepelnikova from KMT Hepatech. I'm also excited to congratulate Dr. Nuzat Tam-Zaman on her election as co-chair, joining Keith Gilchrist at the head of our roundtable. I also want to publicly recognize our outgoing board members. Rick Paluk has served on the BioAlberta board since 2014 and has been a co-chair since 2017, and Mel Wong has served on the BioAlberta board since 2017. Thank you, Rick and Mel, for your dedication and commitment to Alberta's life sciences ecosystem. We are truly better because of you. Now, as Kermit the Frog would say, it's time to get things started. It feels funny to be celebrating the past year, which for us ended on March 31st. Does anybody really remember 2019? Does anybody remember March? It seems like a decade ago. I'd like to focus on 2020 today, not because 2019 was uneventful, but because I want to celebrate how far we've come in 2020 despite, and here comes the phrase we all shudder at, unprecedented change. Change started early in 2020 for BioAlberta. Following 5 years of Mel's strong and capable leadership as CEO, the goal wasn't to take BioAlberta in a new direction. Rather, it was to build on that very success and be creative to grow. Onwards, we said in the January President's letter. Our focal points: focus on member engagement, be a strong and influential voice for our industry, manage BioAlberta's financial and operational affairs prudently, and most of all, add value to our members and partners with everything we do. When I look at 2020, I'm proud of what we've accomplished, even if it's from our basement. Our team is new. Mel and Wendy Lomas retired at the end of 2019, and Donna Parker retired in March after 14 years with BioAlberta. We've created some new energy with the addition of Dr. Joshua Lee, Manager of Membership, Trish Filovich, do Marketing Events, and Christy Fair, our new Office Manager. In February, we held what was to be the first of many member engagement and advocacy events. The Let's Talk Drug Pricing event featured a national panel discussing the dangerous implications of Health Canada's proposed PMPRB changes from a drug supply and a patient perspective. We had started planning for Alberta's delegation to Bio International in June, and we're excited about the MedTech conference being held in Toronto in October and the potential that these international events held to connect our companies and researchers with the world. In early March, we spent 2 days down at the University of Lethbridge learning about their leading edge research and startup community. Mel and I were invited to meet with the government's investment capital working group to discuss the paper BioAlberta authored on behalf of 4 Alberta industry associations and offer advice and tools needed to increase access to capital in Alberta. BioAlberta was also invited to present to the Deputy Minister Committee on Jobs and the Economy to have a discussion focused on job creation. And then, like you, by the end of March, we found ourselves working from home, negotiating Wi-Fi access with your family for Zoom calls, explaining what that item is on the shelf behind you, and wondering what was next. I'm really proud of what came next and what we've been able to accomplish. We focused on our members first. We reached out directly to find out not only how we could help, but what supports our members needed. We created a single point where people could access information on COVID-19. We connected companies and researchers with the right people and support agencies to access funding and to be a part of the emergency management supply chain. And we continue to work with members to find newer, different sources of private capital as the US investors begin to look north again after a short pause. We're pleased to see that a number of the recommendations we made to government on access to capital and job creation helped form Alberta's recovery plan. Yes, there's still work to do, but it was a solid start. Through the first quarter of 2020, we successfully launched the Boosting Biotech Initiative, a collaboration between BioAlberta, Innovative Medicines Canada, and the Government of Alberta. Boosting Biotech provides Alberta SMEs with funding support for internship positions to fill gaps in their staff skill set. Just as important, It provides post-secondary students with hands-on experience in the workplace to help them build the skills they need when they graduate. Phase 1 of Boosting Biotech placed 11 interns in a mix of virtual and physical locations, and one of the internships resulted in a full-time job offer. We also work closely with our partner BioTalent Canada to leverage additional funding to support these internship positions. Boosting Biotech is currently recruiting SMEs for the second intake, so if you're interested in hosting an internship, please contact Trish. In May, we launched a series of consultations with Alberta natural product companies to look at access the Asian marketplace with an Alberta supply chain and logistics support. This initiative is part of our strategy to support natural health product companies by providing market support, common branding, and supply chain development within Alberta. The Alberta Export Accelerator Project currently has 14 companies working with our project lead, Michael Leung, to develop the concept. In June, we held our first ever virtual member engagement event, an engaging presentation by Innovative Medicines Canada President Pamela Freilich on the state of the pharmaceutical industry. By all accounts, it was a great success, and we hope to have Pamela back in the near future for an update. Looking forward, we're excited about what we're planning to engage members and support SMEs. It's clear that virtual platforms and partnering are with us to stay. We're working with our colleagues at Life Sciences BC and the Bioscience Association of Manitoba to train and mentor SMEs for the virtual environment. We launched this initiative at MedTech Virtual, going on right now. 8 Alberta health tech companies joined 8 BC companies and 3 from Manitoba to produce 2 MedTech webinars showcasing the innovation and talent available in Western Canada. Once the conference completes on October 23rd, and as of today, they actually have extended the access to November 8th, we'll be holding a viewing of the webinars to a broader audience, so stay tuned for those events. This virtual program doesn't end with MedTech Virtual. Over the next 5 months, we will host a series of mentoring opportunities on topics to support your virtual adventures, including how to pitch in a virtual setting and how to partner at global events. Watch our mailouts, engage, and enrich for information on these opportunities. So as we look at the end of 2020, I like to reflect on the theme of our blueprint for the future. If not now, when? COVID-19 has been a challenge. It has rocked our economy, our business, and our families. But to quote Gene Kranz from NASA during Apollo 13, I believe this will be our finest hour. Life sciences has been front and center as we drive for vaccines and a cure. The public and policymakers have a new appreciation for our industry and how it impacts their everyday lives. And Alberta is well positioned to use our knowledge, experience, and capacity to help build a modernized economy, one that builds on the fundamentals of Alberta's economy rather than disregarding what has made Alberta the best place to live, work, and play. I'm proud to be part of BioAlberta and Alberta's life sciences. I'm proud of our members and what they do, and I want to thank our members, our partners, and our sponsors for their support. We do what we do with you and for you, and we would not be successful without you. So thank you. Now, I want to introduce you to one of those critical components of Alberta's innovation ecosystem. The Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, or AMii, is a perfect example of the tremendous research capacity that Alberta offers the world. Cam Linke is a longtime leader in Edmonton's technology and startup community. Over the past 10 years, he has worked as a CEO, investor, community builder, product manager, software entrepreneur, academic, and developer. He's a co-founder of Startup Edmonton, a founder of Flight Path Ventures, CEO of TouchMetric, and founder of Demo Camp in Edmonton. Cam has also been recognized as one of the Avenue magazine's top 40 under 40. I'm not sure how he finds the time, but Cam is also still an AI researcher, currently studying under Dr. Richard Sutton and Dr. Adam White. His research, which focuses on AI adapting behaviors to improve their own self-learning, has been published at top conferences. Please welcome Cam Linke to the podium.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rob, and thank you, BioAlberta, for having me. As Rob mentioned, my name's Cam Linke. I'm the CEO of the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute, affectionately known as AMii. Obviously, I'm going to talk to you about artificial intelligence today and some examples in biotech. I don't want to bury the lead, so I'll tell you the 3 things that I hope that you'll be able to get out of my talk today. And that way, if you end up falling asleep or your Wi-Fi cuts out, or I know we're hitting nap o'clock, so you'll know the three things that I was hoping that you'd learn today. So the first one is just an overview of what machine learning is. And I'm sure everybody sees news articles coming out every day about it. A lot of them are is it about Terminator or about job loss or things like this. Neither of those have happened, to my knowledge. But I want to be able to give kind of a just quick demystifying pass about what machine learning is. The second one is I'm going to give you a really whirlwind tour about some examples of machine learning being used in the biotech industry. And for every example I give and every technology I talk about, there's 10 other technologies that that are also in use and could also be talked about. So there's no way I'm going to be able to give you a solution to your specific problem today. But what I want you to get out of this is the understanding of the types of problems and the types of things that are being done and some of the language and some of the technologies that are being used and just a high-level understanding of these things. And lastly, I want to talk about the opportunity that we have here. And we are world leaders in this area of machine learning. Arguably, the most important technology that's underlying every industry right now. We are world leaders in this. And this is this incredible leverage opportunity for kind of every area and every industry and the competitive advantage for Alberta going forward. And one of the biggest areas is biotech. And pretty much every area, every piece of the biotech stack is being touched by machine learning and being accelerated by machine learning. And so there's this huge advantage at the intersection of what much of the membership here is doing and a lot of what we do with our group. So a lot of what we do at AMii. So hopefully if you get those three things out today, I'll have accomplished my mission. So let's get going. As I mentioned, so AMii, at AMii we leverage decades of world-leading AI research to accelerate companies' adoption of AI. And the place I like to start is with this slide of almost 25 world-leading researchers. Many of these people have been researching machine learning since before I was born. Collectively, we have centuries of machine learning research that have been done by this incredible group of people, and they've pioneered many of the techniques and many of the things being used in industry today. But I always like to start with people because it's easy to hop into technology. It's easy to talk about the technologies that are being used and this and that. But at the end of the day, this entire thing comes down to people. AMI's here because Randy Gable, Russ Greiner, Jonathan Schaefer, they got together to make this pitch that we have this expertise here. Rob Holte, sorry, I shouldn't forget Rob. We have this expertise here, and we should, as a province, invest in it. And back in 2002, we did. And because of that, and because of continued investments, we're able to have this group that we have here. And the whole opportunity that we have is not about technology transfer, it's about talent transfer. It's about how do we make sure that the incredible talent that we're producing is transferred out into industry and is able to tackle industry challenges? How do we make sure that the knowledge that's being developed is transferred into talent in organizations? So the whole game is not about any specific technology I talk about today, but is about the talent being produced to be able to tackle those challenges. So this entire thing, the entire game, comes down to people. At AMii, we think of two key pillars of what we do. So we support leading edge research, and that gives us the knowledge, talent, technology to help drive out industry adoption and build industry capacity. So our whole goal is not, hey, throw a problem at us and we'll throw a solution back at you. The whole goal is to be able to build that capacity in your organization so that this incredibly important technology is something that you can leverage and you can use going forward. That industry adoption is what drives applications, resources, partnerships back into that leading edge research. And this is the cycle that we drive at AMii to really push value and really drive value here in the province. And it's how we integrate that world leading research and talent and industry adoption and industry capacity. We work with companies around this idea of moving them along the machine learning adoption spectrum. And so whether a company's just looking at dipping their toe into the area and just starting to say, what the heck is this technology? How can I use it? Or whether they've implemented something and they're trying to use some more advanced techniques, or whether they're a cutting edge machine learning group and they're looking to tap into the best talent, they're looking to tap into the expertise coming out of our group. The whole goal is to move companies up that spectrum, because the more we can move them up there, the more competitive advantage they have and the more competitive advantage we drive for companies who are here in Alberta. There's 4 core areas that we work in. We do funding and support, as I mentioned, for world-class research. This is the core and the engine and the opportunity that we have here. We do coaching and advising for industry partners. Again, the goal is to coach companies and build up their expertise, not to have it just be something that we do for them. We work on upskilling and training the workforce of the future. So we do training, both of teams and of management, everything from understanding what the technology is through to, upskilling teams to be able to actually use it technically. And we work with industry on advanced industry engagements around research and development. So as they're trying to push the field forward and push opportunities forward that they have, they have the ability and they're able to tap into our group and our experience to do that. So I'm going to back up and talk just a little bit about what machine learning is. You've probably heard a lot of these terms: artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, reinforcement learning. Many of them have become, unfortunately become buzzwords. If you look at it, the core of what we do and the reason machine learning is kind of taken over is really about this idea of taking data in and learning to make predictions about the world. And that's the whole slide right there. There's no more bullet points. This at a fundamental level is what machine learning is. Taking in input, learn to make an output, learn to predict something. And whether that's a self-driving car, learning to predict whether it should turn the steering wheel right or left so it stays within the lanes, whether that's trying to predict whether one molecule will bind to another, whether it's predicting how a patient will do on a specific treatment. At the end of the day, there's many, many techniques in that box in the middle, but it's about taking an input, taking data in, learning from that data to make a prediction. If you look at the drug discovery process, in machine learning, in computing, we have this idea of Moore's law, where the cost of computing and the speed of computing is doubling, or the cost is halving and the speed is doubling every 18 months. Storage has a similar law. Unfortunately, as everybody knows, in drug discovery, there's the opposite. There's Ahrum's law, which is the cost of getting a drug to market is taking longer and is more expensive. And what we're seeing is a lot of pioneering companies, whether it's large companies trying to implement it or new startups building things, use machine learning to try and accelerate the process and accelerate each of these stages. But at the end of the day, if you look at each of those, a lot of them go back to the simple idea of taking in data and making a prediction. Taking in data about what a potential target could be and making a prediction about what that target could be. Taking in data about what a compound could be that may bind with a target and making a prediction that says, here are the set of molecules that we want to be able to look at. And so it's that same idea, the whole thing. Machine learning, unfortunately, I'll maybe put myself out of business. Machine learning is very simple from that perspective. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at what maybe is one of the technologies you'll hear about, and something that's maybe higher up on the hype cycle, but something that we pioneer here at the University of Alberta. Our scientists at AMii are pioneering. Rich Sutton, pioneered this field. He's the godfather of reinforcement learning, and we have around 10 researchers pushing forward this field. And so I'll give you a little bit of a flavor of kind of each of these things as we go along. So reinforcement learning. It's a little bit different when you think about, there's a different way to think about machine learning, where instead of saying, here's the output I want, here's a similar example, the agent or the computer exists in this environment, and it learns by taking actions, by trial and error over time to accomplish some goal. So if I want to be able to learn how to get across the stage there, I don't program each individual step. I take an action, I learn the result of that action, I take another action, I learn the result of that action, I take another action, and eventually I get to my goal and I learn that I did that right, and I have to back up that knowledge through that entire chain. So this is really obvious when it comes to things like robots, autonomous vehicles. We want to be able to get a car to a goal while not giving the driver or the passenger whiplash. These are the types of things that people often think about. But you can think about the same problem of a time-dependent or a series of steps-dependent thing as you're starting to construct things like molecules. So here's some work being done by a collaboration between 99 and Beyond, Matt Taylor at AMii, our colleagues at Mila and MIT, around using these same principles to be able to construct molecules. So the idea to start is to say we have an existing molecule, we have a space of synthesizable things that we can build synthesizable molecules. Our action is taking a reaction template, adding a reactant, and then we learn what the product of that reaction is. So it's very similar. It's just doing the same thing I did with steps that you do with molecules. And what you end up with is this system where you have your current state, you select your reactants, put them together, and you get a reward based on your result. And you learn from that. And so that reward, that molecule, then you try again, you learn from the result again. And this loop of being able to construct molecules is a way that's being used by many drug discovery companies as a way of generating new potential molecules and shrinking the search space of potential opportunities. A smaller version of this is this idea of multi-armed bandits, which has been pioneered by Csaba Shebesavari, whose name I always butcher. Sorry, Csaba. And this idea that similar to a single-armed bandit or a whole bunch of single-armed bandits in a casino, if you ever have a thing where you need to make multiple different decisions, you have multiple options that you can take, but you need to be able to learn online what the best actions to take are. What you want to be able to do is select an action, learn from it, and then continue to take the best action if you can find it. The challenge is you might not know what that is. So let's say you have 3 actions in front of you, you take one and you get a reward back of 1. You take the second one, you get a reward back of -1. Yeah, that one's a little worse. And you take the third one and you get a reward back of 3. Okay, so it seems like the third one's better. We'll want to do that. Well, you probably want to explore a little bit more and find out which one is actually the best in there, which action is the best. And so maybe you want to, even though it was a -1 on the second pull, you pull that and you find out the second action, got 1,000. Oh, well, this one's starting to look a lot better. And so it's this idea of trial and error and exploring what my options are, but then trying to get to a point that I can exploit the best option that we use, or multi-armed bandits are used for. And so this is often used in things like clinical trials. If you're looking at what the effective dose is for something, you want to be able to learn online and be able to adjust up or down, what you're doing, what the dose is. So you have multiple actions that you can take, and you want to do these while both minimizing the negative effects, but also finding the best return, the best long-term result of the actions that you're taking. And something like a multi-armed bandit is a great way to be able to do that. Again, work being pioneered by Csaba in our group. Deep learning is probably this technology and probably the technology that everybody's hearing the most out of, or the most of these days. And we have companies coming to us all the time wanting to say, okay, well, how do I use deep learning? And so I'm going to maybe start with is just what this technology is. And what it is this idea that is inspired by the brain, and inspired how the brain works, how your, the squishy neural network in your brain works, and trying to replicate that or do similar things on a computer. And the whole thing, without getting into the math of it or anything like that, is that deep learning is this powerful function approximator. So you can take these really, really high input things, or high value things. So you could take an image that might have 1,000 pixels or 100,000 or 1,000,000 pixels in it. You can take a molecule that has, or a string that represents a molecule that has 1,000 letters in it. You can take all these different these very high dimensional pieces of data, and you can learn to make predictions based on it. So deep learning, really at the end of the day, ignoring all of the guts of it, are this idea of using brain-inspired ideas to represent these high-dimensional state spaces to be able to make predictions. So here's one example on the slide. I'll talk about a couple more. So one is binding prediction. This is a group that Randy Gable's an advisor to in Japan. They use the convolutional neural net to predict compound protein interactions. And you can see, we can go back to what I had said right off the bat, which is taking a whole bunch of data, learning how to make predictions to be able to predict an output, and see that that's the same thing that we're doing here. So we have a string that represents a molecule. We take in that data and we look at it, and we have a whole bunch of labeled data that says these ones bind. These ones bind, these ones don't bind, these ones don't bind. So we can make a predictor that when we have a new target and a new molecule, that we can predict whether it's going to bind or whether it won't bind. And this can help reduce this huge search space of potential drugs that we may want to use. We can help reduce that down to say, okay, well, here's the top 10 that we believe will bind to the target in question. Or here's the top 10 with these properties that will help, that could bind to the target in question, which is going to accelerate our ability to test and to be to test potential potential molecules, potential drugs, and to be able to ideally accelerate that ability to get drugs through to market. And again, this ability, the more we can do that in silico, the more we can do in simulation, the more we can end up searching over a much larger group of molecules with all the properties that we want. Another really interesting thing that we're seeing is that a lot of the fundamental techniques and a lot of things that are being used in one area of machine learning, or have historically been used in one area of machine learning, are being brought into areas like biology. And so this is one of the reasons that having a fundamental research group and having the core be this fundamental research is so important, because it's a lot of these same opportunities, a lot of these same ideas, the same technologies, they're now being transferred into new domains. So this is an interesting one, because this is a group from Salesforce. So you're going, well, what the heck is a sales management tool, a CRM, looking at molecules and looking at how to generate proteins? Well, it turns out that the representation for a lot of these proteins is this string of text, and a sales company or a company that helps manage that is going to do AI on strings of text. And the same techniques that they're using internally at their AI group, the same natural language processing techniques, they're able to use to generate new potential proteins with the properties that they need, or the properties that could be beneficial. So this is this idea of a fundamental understanding of the field of machine learning, and the fundamental understanding of these types of problems end up being able to be used and be able to be transferred over to the biotech industry. Another interesting one is in the clinical trial space, and there's this company called Unlearn, and they're taking this idea that has been in engineering for a long time, this idea of a digital twin, and using it in drug trials. So taking in a whole bunch of data about patients and being able to create an artificial patient, a digital twin of a patient for a clinical trial. And when it's really tough to get people to join clinical trials because nobody wants to be the one whose kid gets the sugar pill when they're really trying to find a solution to this disease that one of their kids is finding, and they don't want to enroll their kid in this clinical trial because they don't know what they're going to get. Now the ability to have nobody get the sugar pill and have a group of have your control arm built by these digital twins is able to both help accelerate the adoption and the enrollment in clinical trials, and the ability to have more targeted data and more exact data because you're generating a match that's a lot closer to the exact person and not just a generic group of control arms or something where we try to get people who are as close as possible. So this idea they use, the interesting thing with this company is that they use this idea that's been around a long time in neural networks of Boltzmann machines. And it doesn't matter what a Boltzmann machine is, but it's this it's this deep learning technique, and they applied it to this area and found that the statistical properties of Boltzmann machines allowed them to do this really effectively. And so again, I'm going to keep repeating this, but it's this idea of fundamentally understanding the opportunity with the technologies in machine learning that are allowing some of these new opportunities to happen and new things to be brought forward. And so it's easy to talk about machine learning overall, and it's easy to think about these really advanced techniques, Boltzmann machines and reinforcement learning and all this, all these incredibly exciting things that are being pushed forward. And what we're seeing when we're working with companies, from any industry, is that a lot of the core fundamental machine learning processes matter more than any specific technique. So it isn't about just coming in and saying, hey, let's just throw, I've heard a lot about deep learning. We're going to throw deep learning at this problem. But it's the core machine learning fundamentals of making sure that your model isn't overfitting, making sure you properly understand your data going in so you can start to think about what technique could best be able to help solve your problem. Do you do things that help you be effective, like split your data, have a train test split, all these things that are very, very important in making sure you're not fooling yourself in the machine learning process. And these are the things that we find are the really important part more than any technique, is making sure that companies understand that our companies are able to use, our companies are able to run a machine learning process end to end more than their ability to use any specific technique to solve one of their problems. So every problem is going to be unique. You're going to have different data. You're going to have a different problem. But being able to effectively run something end to end is ultimately the most important thing. And what we're seeing is many classic machine learning techniques that have been around for decades are highly used and are extremely effective and are great places to be able to pick off low-hanging fruit and move things forward. Gradient boosting, the idea of gradient boosting has been around forever. And it's still, if you haven't seen Kaggle, it's a great data science competition. And there's a great opportunity to look at data and look what techniques people are using there. And the joke is just throw gradient boosting at it, throw this thing called XGBoost at it. The technique's been around forever, and this is where you should start. And many of the competitions have been won using this technique. And so what we're seeing is the idea of following this process is what's the most important thing and where we're seeing it help. So we were fortunate enough to work with a company in Calgary called Okaki. They were looking at applying machine learning to try and predict the risk of opioid overdose. Huge problem. And so regardless of what technique they ultimately ended up using, they knew what the problem was. They had a whole bunch of risk factors and data coming in, and they were able to go through that process of understanding their problem and then looking at what the right model, what the right technique to be able to be effective, to come up with this predictive model. And this is what we worked with them on. And as much as our scientists were really talking to them about some of the techniques themselves and some of the opportunities themselves and some of the technologies, as it was as much the process of going through that and understanding how to constantly improve things, every week, and constantly get better, and improve your understanding of what was going on, and improve your understanding of the problem, and use machine learning to help attack that. That was as important as any technique that they ultimately ended up using. Another example, and this is going back to this idea of things from natural language processing. There's this technique called, I'm not going to try and pronounce it, LDA. We're going to say LDA. So using topic modeling techniques from natural language processing allowed one of our scientists, Luke Kumar, and one of our fellows, Russ Greiner, to improve the prediction of survival times. And so they looked at gene expression, again, going back to these are strings of data. They were able to take that data and be able to make much better predictions about survival times for patients. And this is something that is really effective at helping improve the lives of these cancer patients, because as a doctor is able to make a far better prediction about how their outcome is going to be, about what the outcome is going to be, it helps them choose what path, and helps the doctor and the patient together choose the best path going forward and the best path of treatment. So the interesting thing, again, is the technology is great, super cool, application of this technology, but it was this idea that was brought in from very fundamental machine learning techniques that have been used forever, that was brought over to solve this problem. And so ultimately, this is what we try and work with companies on. We're trying to push the field forward. We're trying to understand more and more about machine learning. We're trying to improve the techniques that we have. But how do we help companies understand how to use this technology and how to understand the process of it more than anything else? Really interesting thing, as I mentioned right off the hop, every area of the biotechnology stack is being affected by machine learning. Here in Alberta, we're the world leaders in this area, and we've pioneered many of the techniques in the field, and this is a huge advantage that we have for the biotech industry here in the province. And the intersection of these two things, of AI and biotech, is really what I believe is going to drive the field forward. So hopefully I didn't put anybody to sleep. This is one of these awkward things where you don't get to see your audience. So I don't know how it did. In my head right now, there's like a standing ovation. Everybody's standing up on their side of their laptops. They're super excited about all this. If you enjoyed the presentation, if you enjoyed what I talked about, I'd love to connect. We'd love to talk to you about your challenges and about what you're doing. So please reach out. If you didn't like my presentation, if I bored you or said something wrong, then reach out, because probably somebody way smarter from my team can talk to you and correct all the mistakes I just made. So no matter what, would love to talk, and just incredibly excited to be able to work with BioAlberta and the companies and the people here to really tackle this incredible challenge and this incredible opportunity that we have as an industry here. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Cam, for that great discussion on the potential of machine learning. And one of the things that I'm really reminded of, as we were talking beforehand, that the investment upon investment and the history that led to U of A and Edmonton being an AI powerhouse goes through the Nanotechnology Institute. It goes through ICOR and some of the research investments that were made back in the late 1990s and early 2000s. So it's a very good reminder today of that the technology will always change. It will change rapidly, but the core is the people. And for those of you who were on the break with us, You heard Dr. Terrell talk about the importance of commercializing technologies and the importance of research and how we fit into that. And I can't mention Dr. Terrell without mentioning Dr. Houghton, our Nobel Prize winner. And think about the tremendous capacity we have and how fortunate and how blessed we are in this province to have such a strong academic research community that does have that interest in commercializing and taking their ideas beyond. So thank you. At this point, I would like to thank our partners. Platinum partners, Deloitte, GlaxoSmithKline, Janssen, Merck, Novartis, and Pfizer. Gold partners, AbbVie, AstraZeneca, BioTalent Canada, Boehringer Ingelheim, Dynalife Medical Labs, Gilead, Innovate Calgary, McCarthy Tetro, Innovative Medicines Canada, Novo Nordisk, Roche, and Sanofi. And last but not least, our silver partners, Amgen, Bosch Health, Biogen, Kite, Edmonton Health City, Medtronic, Servier, Takeda, Tech Edmonton, TELUS Health, the U of A Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry, and the Northern Alberta Clinical Trials Consortium. I'd also like to thank Invert 720 for producing today's events and providing a studio for us to broadcast from. If you're looking for a professionally managed event, virtual or physical, give these guys a call. So thanks for being part of our event today. For a copy of our annual report, which was released this morning, please go to our website listed on the screen. Don't forget to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, Engage, and our bi-weekly events newsletter, Enrich. Please follow us on LinkedIn, Eventbrite, Twitter, and Facebook. And to you for attending and to our members, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Please be safe, and as always, trust science. Thank you very much.